What a couple of phenomenal days. It's amazing that we're already here. Golly, it's crazy. This will be the last, I'll say, presentation for the weekend. It's unbelievable to see that this time has flown by, but what a phenomenal week. I'll start by saying, again, speaking of time, having this fly by, we recognize that your time is exceptionally valuable. It's obviously very, very valuable. I would also share that we also recognize that your capital is exceptionally hard-earned over long periods of time. And we don't take either one of those lightly, neither your time nor your capital. So today will be brief, but I want to close out with just a handful of things. We're going to start with one, briefly framing kind of what we've experienced together over the last couple of days. We're then secondarily going to reinforce what is not changing over here at Sunrise. And then we're going to round out and give you just a little bit of a peek as to what we're going to be doing here as we progress in the future. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with what we've built together this week. In terms of what we've covered together, I like to feel like we didn't just, come here and attend and watch a couple of presentations along the way. We wanted to, have you guys not only just see what we do, but also understand how we think. And hopefully you were able to experience a little bit of that along the way. A window into the Sunrise DNA, who we are, and how we actually get things done. We brought up Mike. He walked through the financial transparency, the financial foundation that we have over here, the accounting guy, we'll say the boring accounting side, the CFO, right? The guardrails we have in place to ultimately protect your capital along the way. We also brought up Todd DeLeon, an absolute stud. They gave you insight in terms of the operational excellence that we have over here and the vertical integration. I feel like it's important to note that Sunrise, we're not just an acquisitions company. It's important for you guys to see that we are a vertically integrated organization focused on never stopping adding value across the board. Again, if we never bought another respective deal, we never raised another dollar of capital, we've got a lot of room to run to add value inside of the portfolio by controlling our own destiny. And so, Todd, thank you very much for walking through that. We also go out to listen to Kevin talk shop about how we ultimately get deals to pass muster, the deals that go through the institutional rigor necessary to actually come into our pipeline and ultimately acquire those respective assets. The filters that we go through, the underwriting every single investment must pass in order to even reach the investment committee. And I'd say maybe last but not least, probably most importantly, a little bit of time to spend amongst yourselves in the roundtables, talking shop amongst your peers, not only networking with Sunrise, but also networking amongst yourselves, spending time with a lot of really successful individuals who have done some amazing things, sharing the tips and tricks and tools and tactics and things that you've learned over time for the betterment of everybody involved, passing along some of that sage investment advice along the way. Again, I feel like this right here, this company that we've built, it's never been about just simply transactions. It's never been about just one individual deal or doing a transaction here and there. From our perspective, it's about building an ecosystem, about building something that is enduring, something that is durable. We've had 3 different themes that we've tried to go back to over and over and over throughout the course of the weekend, and that's the idea of concept of stewardship. If we're going to ultimately become stewards, we've got to take the mindset that we're never going to ultimately lose money, right? Stewards of capital first, i.e. protecting the downside. Stewards of people, ultimately serving them along the way, and stewards of time. So stewards of capital in terms of protecting capital, stewards of people in terms of serving people, and stewards of time in terms of building an enduring organization that is set to last for decades and hopefully generations. Now, just want to reinforce what's never going to change over here at Sunrise. What is not changing? Because I know the environment that we're in, right? The ups and downs and ebbs and flows in the marketplace. It's been a lot of noise, I would say, in the marketplace over the last handful of years, with a lot of things changing, a lot of uncertainty in the headlines, and plenty of groups ultimately changing their stripes along the way. We've seen a lot of, multifamily sponsors ultimately become, RV experts in short order. We've seen a lot of RV guys bump over into the self-storage sector because that's obviously where their specialty lies, right? A lot of guys that got into mobile home parks because it's so easy in the last handful of years. But I want to be very clear here, guys, who we are and what we do. Markets change, cycles turn, but our discipline does not. That's who we are. In terms of the 3 themes, stewardship, we protect investor capital first. You guys have heard us come back to this over and over and over again. We actually do take the mindset of protecting capital. There's been a lot of guys over the last handful of years with the ups and downs in the marketplace. I would say it's largely separated those folks that are professional capital raisers from those that are actually legitimate stewards of capital, disciplined stewards, intentionally trying to drive value for every stakeholder in the business. We most assuredly take that to heart. And if you're going to take that to heart, that you're going to protect capital, you have to ensure that you have an exceptional strategy that will survive through the next inevitable downturn, because we know that that's going to occur. We follow a simple, disciplined, repeatable process that's ultimately been successful for now 15 years going on it. We take the world's greatest entrepreneurs, the world's greatest investors, the world's greatest capital allocators, history's best lessons for hundreds and hundreds of years, sage investment principles that were true hundreds of years ago, that are true today, and that are going to be true hundreds of years from now. And we've wrapped in decades of our own lived experience, the scar tissue to prove it, put that together in the Sunrise Capital strategy to ensure that we always find a way to protect the downside. So if you take that position that you're going to have the mindset of being a steward, you put in process an exceptional strategy to ensure that you never lose money. The result is stability, safe, predictable, recurring income streams over very long periods of time. And the proof really has been in the pudding. And nothing about this core philosophy is going to change. This is who we are. This is the Sunrise DNA. You got to experience a little bit of it in our time here today over the course of the weekend. We're not going to be changing this. If anything, we're just doubling down, trying to do more of this as we progress. Markets change, cycles turn, but our discipline will not. That will not fade. And the truth of the matter is, over the last 24 months, 36 months, it really has been the test over the last couple of years, right? Let's be honest, the last couple of years in commercial real estate has really not been that easy. It's been pretty difficult. Inevitably, somebody in this room, you yourself, very well may have a deal that has ultimately gone sideways. And if not you know somebody who has been invested in a deal who has gone sideways. And if you didn't before this weekend, you most assuredly do now, spending some time amongst your peers. Everybody's felt that pain. It's a sad state of affairs. And this is the environment that separated those promotional operators from those disciplined stewards of capital. We've seen unbelievable rising interest rates, fastest interest rate increase in history, exceedingly volatile markets, real pressure on GPs, pressure on LPs, pressure on individual transactions in the capital stack. And while no operator is immune to market pressure over time, we do feel like we were built for this respective market. We are exceedingly proud of how Sunrise has performed throughout this process. Since the inception of our first fund, we've had 33 consecutive quarters of on-time distributions to our partners along the way. Consistent distributions regardless of the economic cycle. And it boils back down to being a steward, putting in place a great strategy so you have stability, stable, predictable, recurring income streams over long periods of time. We've had the ability to continue to drive the NOI regardless of the cycle. Control your own destiny. We walked through that previously, one of those sage investment principles, making sure that you control the outcome and not have it be based exclusively on the whims of Mr. Market. We now know that, again, if we never raised another dollar, if we never bought another deal, we could still add millions of dollars of value to the enterprise in the portfolio by virtue of controlling our own destiny. And again, probably most proud of the resilience of the portfolio throughout the entirety of this hullabaloo in the last handful of years. In a situation where so many folks have had paused distributions, capital calls, sometimes total loss of capital, our portfolio has remained exceedingly resilient throughout that rate spike. And I'm extremely proud of that. Undoubtedly. I want to emphasize something important. While I am so unbelievably proud of that, I realize, proud of the results, but even more proud of the discipline that ultimately led us to those results. Because I would say that discipline, not luck, is ultimately what gets you through those cycles. At our annual, we walk through this a little bit, and I'll refer back to a phenomenal book that has now become a book of business lore. Back in the day, it was a book about how to be a good football coach. And it was written by the former head coach of the 49ers, Bill Walsh. It's called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And when he became the head coach of the 49ers in the early 1990s, it was an absolute dumpster fire of a franchise. They were absolutely horrific. Worst team in the NFL. And he knew it was unrealistic for them to ultimately be able to win the Super Bowl in the course of the next 6 months, 1 year, maybe even 2 years. It was not realistic and feasible to kind of charge in to the locker room and say, all right, guys, we're going to win the Super Bowl. That wasn't a realistic goal. So as opposed to stating that, he said, we're going to find a way to control what we can control. And the book is called The Score Takes Care of Itself. If we control what we can control, the score takes care of itself. So what he decided to do was have the team focus on the field, the actual things that they could do on a day-to-day basis to actually impact the results. And what he decided to do was walk into the organization and then set a standard, a new standard for the organization. And an easy story to tell to try to exemplify this is that at practice, when people would, be coming off the field, they'd be having their helmet on, they'd come off the field and they would end up chucking it on the ground and just roll around and get all in the dirt and the sand and whatnot. And he said, from this moment forward, the only place that your helmet is going to be, because it has the San Francisco 49ers logo on it, when he takes his helmet off, the only place that can possibly go is 1, in your locker, or 2, on a post on the bench. It will never be treated anywhere else because you need to treat it with respect, the respect that it deserves. And that's the standard that we have for the organization. And Todd mentioned this in passing when he came up. And he said, we're calling this the sunrise way. We've set a standard for how everyone in our organization must operate in order to drive value for every stakeholder on the team. And so we're applying that same level of philosophy to our organization on a day-to-day basis. And how does that tie into kind of who we are and what we do? At Sunrise, we've set a standard for every respective community. Todd talked about it, right? The bronze, the silver, and the gold. And ultimately now we only have 7 of those communities that are currently meeting the standards that we've set across the board. But what I know is that we have a lot of room to run. And what I also know is we will inevitably have those communities get better and better and better in time. But last but not least, once we do have, as Todd had mentioned, we envision a day where there's 15, there's 20 communities that have received that level of standard. At that point, once we've gotten to the point where 20 communities are all at the gold standard, then we have the luxury of raising the bar, continuing to heighten that standard and iterate and improve what we're doing for the betterment of all. And that's what we'll continue to do. We take the philosophy that it's day number 1 over here at Sunrise. It's day one. Day one. If you guys are familiar with Jeff Bezos over at Amazon, every single year he writes a stakeholder letter to try to explain to everybody what he's got going on, what he intends to do with the organization as they progress. And at the culmination of all the different annuals, he ends up finishing with, it's day one. It's day one over here at Amazon. It's day one. And after multiple years of this and teammates hearing this over and over and over, somebody, a brave soul in the stands raised their hand and said, hey, Jeff, what the heck does day 2 look like? And Jeff said, day 2, what does day 2 look like? Day 2 looks like slowing growth, moderating off, eventually plateauing, slowly dwindling down to your inevitable death. And the idea and the logic is if we do not continue to iterate and improve, we do not continue to raise the bar, we do not continue to grow, both personally and professionally, that eventually the business will die. So we will always here at Sunrise adhere to that same principle, that it is day one. We've done some amazing things. We're exceedingly proud of what we've been able to achieve, but we are not satisfied. We're proud, but never satisfied. So what does the road ahead look like for us? We're going to, in the very near term, stay disciplined. My dad once told me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've been doing pretty well. So we're going to continue to adhere to the principles that have got us here. We'll continue with disciplined acquisitions, one foot in front of the other. Kevin has been doing a great job with this. We love you, buddy. Don't quit on me now. Yeah. No, it's beautiful to see. We've done exceptional at this. We're going to continue to do our best to buy deals with a nice margin of safety immediately at acquisition and hold on to that margin of safety throughout the entirety of the holding period. This is how you become a steward of capital with a great strategy to create stability in the portfolio, and it starts with that. We're also going to ensure that we drive net operating income inside of the portfolio. That's Todd's job. Point person there. Ensure that we can take top-line revenue, continue to increase that, and drive as much of that to the bottom line as we can. Because, again, and it's not just that. Revenue, at the end of the day, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. But even then, profit is an opinion, cash flow is a fact. And at the end of the day, if you want to go further, after-tax cash-on-cash return is the only thing that matters. So we'll continue to focus on that. What is the after-tax cash-on-cash return in the portfolio? That's where we're focused. How much value can we drive in the portfolio? And we got a lot of room to run. we're going to continue to deepen the vertical integration. If we're going to do that, right? If we never raised another dollar, if we never bought another deal, we could still add millions of dollars of enterprise value to the portfolio. But the only way we could do it is by deepening the vertical integration, getting better, iterate and improve, 1% better every single day. Furthermore, in terms of the vertical integration, there's a large ecosystem in the manufactured housing sector. There's a lot of different ways to earn income and make money in the sector. There's a lot of different people in the stakeholder chain, in the value chain, by the time that you ultimately, are creating a brand new mobile home that eventually gets into a brand new community and you receive a rent from the resident. And one of our valued partners earlier today brought up an idea of a book that I absolutely cherish, Titan by John D. Rockefeller, one of the best books out there. And he is adamant about trying to drive as much vertical integration as you possibly can along the way. And so when he was creating Standard Oil back in the day, he found ways to ensure that if there were ever a scenario where a vendor he was paying ultimately was receiving a profit margin, he was trying to find ways to ultimately receive that additional margin. Because if he could take that position, become vertically integrated, remove that vendor, he could squeeze that and ultimately create better value for the end consumer and retain more of the overall profits inside of the ecosystem that he was creating. So we'll explore additional ways that we can keep more of that income and profit in our ecosystem as we progress. Last but not least, we'll look to continue enhancing the investor experience. By no means are we perfect. I think we do pretty good here, but we're not perfect. But what we need is your help to ensure that we can continue to grow and improve in this regard. You guys have a wealth of experience and a ton of knowledge, and you've seen a lot of different things. And we don't know what we don't know. There's blind spots out there. So if you see something, say something. There's something that we're doing that you feel that we can improve upon, please let us know. We will not be perfect, but I can promise you we will do our best to serve you to the best of our ability forevermore. From here on out, that's what we try to do every single day. So if there's something that we could do to improve your experience, please let us know. These bullet points up here, there's nothing flashy up here. There's nothing flashy. There's nothing that's experimentational, right? Like we're not trying to do anything crazy, funky, brand new off the rails. It's just steady, methodical execution over long periods of time. And over the long term, right? Over the long term, what are we going to be looking to do? We do see some additional thoughtful opportunities to expand over here at Sunrise. Most assuredly do. We kind of talked about this a little bit in terms of the overall ecosystem and the big pie of manufactured housing. But if and when we ever do intend to explore additional opportunities to expand at Sunrise, this is unbelievably important. I want to emphasize it. If ever we go down that process, we will expand carefully, we will expand deliberately, and we will only expand if it improves the durability of the entirety of the platform. That is the only time that we'll ever do so, which brings me to one area that you're going to hear more about in due time in the coming quarters. As many of you guys know, we do pay a healthy amount of interest on an annual basis. When you run real estate operations in the mobile home park sector, that's what happens. So we drive revenue, we end up creating profit after expenses, and then below the line, we have some non-operating expenses, otherwise known as interest, and a healthy amount of that every single year goes to Uncle Warren Buffett. For those unaware, in the interest of no man left behind, you guys have heard me say this before, Warren Buffett is the largest player in the mobile home sector. He is the largest manufacturer of mobile homes in the country through Clayton Homes. He is the largest lender on mobile homes in the country through 21st Mortgage, and he's the second largest lender on mobile home parks in the country through Vanderbilt Mortgage and also Berkadia, both subsidiaries of Berkshire Hathaway. And if over time we had the opportunity to replace Warren Buffett, to whom we pay exorbitant amounts of interest on an ongoing basis, and replace him with our investors, would that be something of interest to all of our partners? I hope so. I personally believe that he puts himself in an exceptional position in our industry. He earns far more money on an annual basis in his manufactured housing portfolio from the interest earned on mobile homes and mobile home parks than he does in other areas in the cumulative nominal dollar amount. So we're looking to find ways to keep more of the overall economics inside of our Sunrise ecosystem. And I want you to understand this is not a pivot. This is not some sort of gigantic distraction. It's an understanding of trying to deepen the vertical integration over here at Sunrise. It's a natural extension of the platform that we've been building over here for many, many, many years. We've got more to come on this. It's not going to happen overnight. But as I mentioned, we're going to be unveiling more and more about this as we progress. Last but not least, it is important to note that at the center, at the heart of all of this, the entirety of the ecosystem, are the long-term partnerships that we've built along the way. And these partnerships that fuel the growth of the organization, we've been doing our best to ultimately help as many human beings as possible generate cash flow and build legacy wealth in a tax-efficient manner, because that's what I'm trying to do for my family, and we're going to help as many people as possible do that as we can along the way. We're looking to generate durable cash flow by durably wonderful businesses, durable in that the cash flow that they throw off is durable, predictable, reliable cash flow over long periods of time, and wonderful in that they have exceptionally profound long-term macroeconomic tailwinds where the demand goes up at a higher rate than the new supply coming online, which means they have exceptional compound interest. Same store NOI growth, which is just a fancy way to say better compound interest. And I understand that this perspective is a very different mindset than what the vast majority of other sponsors in the marketplace ultimately take. But I also understand that that decision is very intentional. It is not happenstance. And I would pose to you that the results that we've had over the last decade throughout the ups and downs are not a matter of luck, but also based on intentional decisions on how we've ultimately structured this portfolio over time. So, to everyone in this room, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. Thank you for your time this week. Thank you very much for your thoughtful questions along the way. And thank you very much, most importantly, for the trust that you've placed in Sunrise. We do not take that lightly. We know that markets are going to ebb and flow. They're going to change like the tides. But if the 2 days that you've been here have really demonstrated anything at all, we hope that you know that Sunrise was built for this. We were built from day one, constructed, engineered for markets exactly like this. The Sunrise Capital strategy was engineered for one thing: near certainty of result, assurance of outcome. Then we put $1 into the marketplace, that dollar will eventually come back to us. We can go buy another asset with that dollar. We can create multiple streams of income and eventually create a snowball that benefits everybody involved to generate cash flow and build legacy wealth in a tax-efficient manner. We are grateful that you guys are on this journey with us, and we look forward to serving you for many, many, many more years to come. I cannot wait to continue the conversation with you guys later tonight while we're here, as well as over dinner. But thank you very much for the time that you guys have spent with us this weekend. We look forward to seeing many, many more successful years together. With that, we'll get out of here. Be great.